Coach, hey, thanks for joining me today on this Simple Coach to Coach interview. Do appreciate it. You're already a notorious podcaster. I heard you on the Soccer Dad pod.
Soccer Dad, yeah.
Yeah, and I chimed in right away as soon as I heard it. Thought it was interesting, your take on the portal and all that kind of stuff. So it was just really interesting. So I'm glad we could connect, and I'm appreciative that you took the time today.
Oh, thanks, Paul. Appreciate you. Thanks for inviting me.
Okay, so I mentioned this to you earlier. You are a rookie. So as I do with all rookies, I would just like to know, tell me about your soccer journey. How did you get out to Alabama at Huntington College? Yeah.
So I grew up here. I'm from Alabama, and I actually played here my freshman year. It was like the closest place to go. It was like one of the places they recruited me, and it was place you can stay close to home. Transferred to the University of Charleston in Charleston, West Virginia, and was fortunate to be there during the whole rebuild of the program, I guess is the professional way to put it. A lot of good connections, a lot of great experiences, and that inspired me to get into coaching. So I've kind of gone down both the professional path on the business side, or the business and soccer side, and then the coaching path as well. So did the MLS stuff first. I was working with the Galaxy for 2 years in the front office and desperately wanted to get back on the soccer side. So I gave up LA Galaxy, David Beckham, Robbie Keane, all of that to go to D3 and be an assistant at Moravian College in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And then I climbed from there, which means moving all over the place, and D3 head coach, D1 assistant, D1 recruiting coordinator. All of that got me back into MLS, but on the soccer side and at Columbus Crew, where I spent 5 seasons. So doing all of that and getting married, having a family, it started to kind of be like, what's our plan? Are we just going to keep moving every 2 or 3 years? And my wife and I chose to be by family, and we can still do the soccer thing, still have a project to work on, but it matters to us, and there's something more to it. And there's a balance of family and being around grandparents and cousins and all of that. So that's the quick 30-second journey of the full circle of coming back home.
Did you go to Huntington? Was that of interest to you also because you went there for a year? Was that on your radar for that purpose, or was it just a timing thing?
A little bit of both, to be honest with you. I never had a dream of I really want to go back and coach at Huntington. It kind of was the right time, at the right time for me and my wife, thinking it would be nice to feel settled and feel like we're by family. My daughter is 6 and my son is 3, so it's also the right time for them of where are we going to be, so we're not moving them during their formative years in school. But yeah, I think my experience at Huntington, it wasn't elite, it wasn't great, it wasn't bad, but I thought that there was a lot still left on the table that could be improved upon, and that's what they were looking for. So to be honest with you, I reached out to them and was like, hey, look, what can I do to help in this search? I still care about the school. I would like to see you guys get better. And it kind of turned into, would you be interested? And would I be interested? And then I talked to my wife about it, and it was like, would we be interested? Should I put my name in the hat? And that's kind of just what happened.
Ultimately, did they hire you for a purpose? They're just looking to fill a seat in that? Or were they like, look, we're hiring you because we want you to rebuild, whatever the case may be?
Yeah, I think to hit the reset button, we need to understand this is one of only 3 NCAA Division III programs that has not had a winning season since the 90s.
Okay.
It's there. That's where we're at. The school did not know that. I had to present that to them. And I think that really hit home for all of us of like, okay, there is a project here. Let's get to work. But we need to be smart about it. We're not going to throw money at this. It's not going to be, let's go rebuild a brand new facility. Let's do all these crazy things. Let's gut it down to what do we need to do to build this thing sustainably. Because the last thing you want to do is just have a splash and then it goes back to struggling. So how do you build it sustainably? And that's, to answer your question, I think that's what we all agreed on. That's where we aligned is what do we build it around?
Yeah. Is there? All right. I'll just ask the one because it's a school of faith, and I have a. I think schools of faith are really interesting. Like
Yeah,
go beyond sort of the Division 3. But what is unique to Huntington? I'll get it right at some point.
you get
But
it. You get
what
it.
is unique to the school that you're again? It's like what is unique to the school that makes you think that you could tear it down, start over. I'm not sure
Yeah.
the right words, but start over and be like, okay, our first objective. We're going to get a winning season under our belt, or whatever the
Yep.
case may be. What is it about the place that makes you think that?
Two things just to respond to, and then I'll build off of it. The
Yeah.
goal isn't necessarily winning season. That's not the first step. First step is we need to win a conference game. That has not happened since the formation of this new conference. That's a very tangible first goal. That's straight up. The second thing is, I heard your interview with Travis at OU. They're a Methodist school, same as us.
Yeah.
If you could imagine OU in a state where there's no other D3s, that's pretty entertaining.
Yeah.
That's where we're at. We're not a BYU. We don't have forced mass or forced any of that. Like it's not. It's a religious school for people that take it seriously and want that to be an element of their college education or experience. But also, if you're not a believer and you're not a specific Methodist or you're not a Christian even, it's not going to affect you, and it's just a really good private school to prepare you for where you're going to go. So there's a lot of pros and cons there, or a lot of pros. I guess it's a win-win. But yeah, I think to answer your question, simple fact: we're Alabama's D3. There is no other D3. There is no D3 in Florida. So you have the Panhandle.
Yeah.
You've got Tampa. You've got Orlando. And obviously, I think there's a lot of players down here that connects to me directly. That whether they play at a big club or don't play club, play multiple sports. High school soccer is big down here. I think there's an opportunity for us to wrap our arms around the state and the region and say we're going somewhere. Who wants to join? And it'll pick up steam.
Yeah. Is there like where do kids go? Is it a case of if they're not aside from like there's going to be a handful that are going to find a place, but do most soccer players that might look to play if they don't get somewhere, they just go to Alabama or they is that
They go to
sort of what they
Auburn.
end up
They go to Auburn or
yeah,
Alabama,
yeah.
and they play club or they join a fraternity
Uh-huh.
because there hasn't been opportunities. Now, one of the things that I won't even say we're competing against it, but it's another player in the deciding factor for players is junior colleges are starting to build programs in the state, which is going to be very helpful for us because we now also can work together of saying there's a lot of players here, let's give them opportunities. And now it's a very clear 2-year, 4-year private school, public school. There's price, obviously, evaluation involved in that. But it just puts playing in college on the forefront for people to be thinking about earlier, where in the past that probably wasn't a reality. People weren't thinking, oh, I can play soccer in college because I'm not a Division I player and I have to go out of state. Or if UAB doesn't want me, well, where am I going to go? That's kind of been the way it's been. At least it was when I was growing up and a decade after. And now hopefully it's starting to kind of shift.
So what are the first things that you've done, I'll just say from a recruiting perspective, if you've actually gotten there? Because you came on board in January? No.
January.
Yeah, so you've had plenty of time to go out there and do your recruiting. Is there
Yeah. 3 full months. Yeah.
3 full months? Like,
Yeah.
what are the first things that you've done or the steps that you've taken to, I'll just say, put your signature on sort of how you're going to go about recruiting?
I think it's funny. You're not going to believe me, but I think the most important thing that we've done is hire a very strong assistant coach. I can't do it by myself. I'm not
Yeah.
going to be. I was really fortunate. I didn't know Jordan before, but going through the interview process, we connected really well. We clicked well, and we see the game the same way. So now I've essentially doubled my own capacity to go out and recruit, and that's paid dividends already. But yeah, I mean, the traditional answers would be immediately before I even was on campus. I went down to ECNL in Florida. I went down to ECNL RL in Tampa. I've gone to 3 different high school showcases and watched every single high school that's there. Obviously, the first thing you do is go watch the MLS Next team. You go watch the ECNL team
Yeah.
in the state. And we've gone out and watched random individual high school games. We've gone out to other states and watched high school tournaments that are kind of not elite, but there's going to be a player or two. And we found a very good player who's signed. So yeah, you just try to piece it together the best you can, and I'm really happy with the class we've got coming, and hope to continue to add to it. But that's how you lay the groundwork, in my opinion, is you just try to be seen at all these places. You watch as many players as you can. You open conversations. You open doors. And you're honest, and you'll find out the players that believe in the same things you believe in, and you'll end up in a good spot in a couple of years.
Yeah. It sometimes it's a matter of just being in just being out there, right, and being in the
Yep.
mix. And if you can get into the mix, then you're right. At some point, the numbers just play your way, right? Like then that's how you. I think that's almost like recruiting. Like if you're not going to some of these places to see players, you're you're not. No one's gonna know that you're looking, right? I think
Right.
that's the
Yeah, it's funny because like here, if you want to say we're hitting reset on the program, like there's 2 things. You really need to be a player in these big tournaments, the big youth
yeah,
soccer landscape, and we need to be the ones that are in the mix. Like you said, it's us and 3 other schools that they have offers
yeah,
from.
yeah,
Great, we'll land a couple of those guys, which is great. I don't know if that's happened so much
right,
in the past decade or plus. And then
yeah,
the other thing is we need to go look in places that other people won't.
yeah,
That's not beneath us, and I'm happy that we're able to find guys like that and bring them in. But you got to have the courage to take swings, right? Like we
yeah,
went.
yeah.
The number one high school team in the country right now is Oak Mountain High School. I think they're like 23-0,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just slaughtering the next best teams like seven
Right.
nil. We have 2 starters from their team coming in, and
Oh,
that's
nice.
you have to have the courage to kind of be like, hey, are you interested in us? Who wants to take a visit?
Yeah, yeah,
And they may say no 9
yeah.
times out of 10, but the ones that are interested, you got somebody. And it's things like that, stories like that are happening over and over that gives us hope and excitement to keep going.
Is what surprised you the most getting there? Right. There's always a difference. The interview process, right, versus your personal experience versus what the reality is when you step on
Yeah,
campus. Is what surprised you?
that's a great question. My initial gut reaction is they led with autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, we give our coaches space to do the job they need to do. The AD is incredible about that. It's like, look, if I hire good people, I trust you. I'm not going to get involved. We don't need to have weekly meetings. We don't need to have you tell me what your game plan is, who's starting, who's not. Do what you need to do. Come find me when you need help. And
Mm-hmm.
that's been my experience the first 3-4 months is
Yeah.
they want you to do the best you can possibly do,
Mm-hmm.
but also like if you have a question about compliance or you have a question about scheduling or this that go ask. Other than that, they're going to give you as much rope as you possibly need, without spending money, as every school is that way.
Yeah.
That's different,
Yeah.
but it allows you to be creative. It allows you to be unique. It allows you to build a culture, and you don't have this big behemoth feeling of like, wow, this is a huge athletic department. No, it's a startup. That's the way it feels.
Mm,
And you have that kind of startup energy if you really want to harness it. So it's been great. It's been great.
yeah. Is have you had practice? Have you started your Have you done your spring practices, or are you done with your spring practices?
We we have done 22 of our 24 days.
Yeah.
So
Have
we
you
have two more
scrimmaged yet,
days.
or no?
We did. We had a scrimmage on Saturday.
Uh huh.
We chose one. I know we have one competition date. We chose
Yeah.
one full 90-minute game.
Yeah.
We only had 17 field players, so it's
Uh
kind
huh.
of one of those like, you know, you can't run them
Yeah.
into the ground playing two
Yeah.
games. In
Yeah.
3
Yeah. What is like? What's been their reception to having a new coach?
I think some of it has been cool. This is exciting,
Hmm.
and then on the other half of that is, wow,
Oh
this is
my
harder than I
gosh.
expected.
Yeah.
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 So I have to be careful about that. Is
Hmm.
I have to understand where they're at and try to walk them down that line instead of
Hmm.
just throw them at the end of the line and say, catch up. That's
Hmm.
not going to work well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, they also understand that my job is not to come in and just gut this and like cut them all and
Hmm.
start over. Like, I want to
Yeah.
build and develop players that have been here and deserve opportunities as well. And we've been pleasantly surprised. There's some really, really talented players in this group that I think fit the model that we would want to be building around. So it's kind of a perfect situation for those individuals. And then other guys have grown quite a bit.
Hmm.
So we're excited to see who continues to grow.
All right, so I'm going to ask you this, and it might just be as simple as this was the opportunity that presented itself, and you
Sure.
spoke about earlier. But you have the Division 1 experience, you have Division 3 experience, very familiar with Moravian. It's hour and a half, 2 hours. We drove past it um, last. When did we drive past it? I forget. 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
Um, what is it about Division 3 that attracts you? And you were at Charleston in West Virginia, so that's what is that D1 still, or is it D
No, it's
two?
D2. Yeah, it's
D2, yeah,
D2.
yeah. So what was it about Division 3 that you
I,
sort of honed
I
in on?
Yeah, so I talked about that in the interview process with these guys here, and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
why would you want to come, quote unquote, down to Division 3?" And I straight up just told them, I said, look, like in my core of core, I'm a D3 guy. Like I never
Mm-hmm.
was going to be a pro. I never was going to be a big high scholarship guy, NIL
Mm-hmm.
guy. Like that never was going to be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been fun to be punching above my weight and being in Major League Soccer for 7 years and two different D1 programs and all that stuff. It was fun to be a small scholarship student athlete
Mm-hmm.
on a really competitive roster at Charleston. But at my core, I'm a D3 guy. I'm a balanced education soccer. I was never the guy that wanted to train 11 months out of the year. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
the off season. I wanted to be around my guys. I wanted to take my school seriously and have projects and be on SGA, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I had a D3 experience just at a D2.
Yeah.
So the other piece of it is that like I've never been able to coach guys that are like me.
Mm-hmm.
I've always had to coach, international guys that come from professional academies,
Yeah.
right? And like they already know what you're trying to teach them. You're just trying to remind them. It's not as exciting of like
Yeah.
carrying guys into taking huge steps in their development.
Yeah.
So there's a couple pieces there, but yeah, like I'm a D3 guy at my core, and I've been fortunate to taste other levels, but this is definitely more aligned with kind of who I am inside.
Mm-hmm. Were you? Do you? I'm just curious because I
Yeah.
usually ask this later, but with with all the changes going on, do you? I mean, does it reaffirm your belief in the D3 model
Yes.
versus, let's say, D1, which I
Yep.
think is becoming a little bit ridiculous, but that's just my.
I think I said this on that other the soccer dad
Yeah.
podcast that was from St. Louis. Like I think it's great that you have two different, very clearly different avenues for an 18-year-old kid. On the D1 side, it's a very professional experience. The facilities are there at most of the schools. The professional approach from the coaching staffs are there. So is the agent. There are agents, and there is transactional contracts.
Mm-hmm.
You are on a contract, whether you like it or
Yeah.
not. And that can be taken away at any given time, and there's no repercussions. So it's performance. You have to perform, and that's a very cool experience if that's what your expectations are.
Yeah.
D3 is very traditional on the college experience of we're trying to build a team, we're trying to develop players. This is a 4-year process. We're going to play the long game. We're not going to make rash decisions because my job's not on the line to win a conference title every single year. And
Yeah.
nobody we're competing against has that same pressure.
Mm-hmm.
D1s do. So there's two very clear different paths. And I think that's good. We just need to be, and I think it'll take time, but once these are becoming very clearly the options, people can choose, and there's no muddy waters of like D3s
Yeah.
pretending like they're D1s or D1s pretending like they're D3s.
Yeah.
For the most part, you pretty much are one or the other, and let's go down those paths.
Yeah. That's interesting that you say that because it's hard to see where it ends up in the middle of it, right? Like, and we're in the
Yeah,
middle of all these change, and we don't know what else is going to change. But we know the impact on the rosters and all that kind of stuff. But you're right; it's going to chart out two very clear paths for a player to determine.
yeah,
Right? Do I want that professional commitment, which is effectively what you're doing at a Division 1 school, or
yep,
do I want the student athlete? I don't know if those are the right way to define those two, but strikes me as that's the case. Like you want a more
yep,
traditional student athlete experience, and you're going to go D3, maybe even D2. I'm not sort of familiar
yeah.
with
And
how it's all going to shake out there, but
I don't know other sports too well, but I would imagine in other sports the D2 model is the mix of both.
hmm
In our sport, we let's face it, like D2 is heavily international for the top
yeah,
teams.
yeah,
So that changes the model. It's just a little different than like a
yeah,
mix of the D1 and D3. D2 for our sport is it's the D1 guys that are popping on the radar and they're using D2 to get up to the D1. So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
still transactional
yeah,
and there's not a lot of space for those, unearthed talents or
yeah,
this guy needs a scholarship and he's
yeah,
playing at ECNL and let's go D2. That's not happening as much. There's still stories like that, but it kind of forces soccer into the black or the white, the D1 or the
yeah,
D3.
yeah.
And that's good. I think that's good in the long run for American soccer.
Yeah, I think it definitely. Again, it just sort of highlight like you have to think about what your experience is going to be like, and I think that's healthy, right?
I
Like I
agree.
think
I
you
agree.
know, it just to talk a little bit about that. You said D2 tends to be a little bit more foreign. What are your thoughts on foreign players in college, just in general? You saw the D1 final. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
Marshall,
that was yeah, it was pretty heavy. And when they won it, they were same thing. I think they were just overloaded. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. I think there's a time and a place, right? And I think it's great for American players because we all have to be improving. And this is a world game, and the world is getting smaller with transportation, with cell phones, everything. Like people communicating, the world's getting smaller. And it's great that you have guys from Germany or England or Spain or Brazil or whatever saying, wow, you guys have this educational system. I can do both at a really high level. Cool. I want to go there.
hmm
Good. Competition's good.
hmm
I said it to a lot of recruits all the time. One of the best parts about my experience playing Division 2 was that my roommate was an international. I had
hmm
teammates I think from 8 different countries, but the balance was 50-50 on the roster.
hmm
We had
hmm
50% Americans, 50%, roughly 50. It might have been
yeah,
45, 55, whatever. There was a balance there, and it was cool that that was our culture. Is everybody's welcome here. Whoever's a good player, you're going to be here.
hmm
And I think it's fine that there's international players. And if you're an American and you want that experience, great, go fight it. It's like going to Europe because it's going to be hard.
yeah,
You have to fight against that bias of you're an American soccer player. Cool. But there's also places like Huntingdon. We don't have international admissions. We don't have a
hmm
TOEFL requirement. We don't have anybody to be the liaison between the federal government. So we can't recruit
hmm
international student athletes. So there's places like, and if you look at D3, there's a lot of places that
yeah,
don't have internationals. So there's pros and cons to all of it, and there's 1,300 different soccer programs you can look at, and there's a right fit for somebody.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
But for those guys that want the experience playing with international players, it's great. I think it's amazing.
Yeah. It definitely does add the competitive element. That's for
Yeah.
sure. No doubt about it. All right, so you mentioned this, and it just sort of popped into my head. Like, what's culturally or sort of the culture that you want to instill in your program? What does that look like for you? As I'm like I said, you're 3 months in, and you're obviously done building your culture. But what does
It's all done. It's all done.
yeah. You're just kicking back. It's just
Yeah.
preseason or it's off season. So no, what does that look like for you? What are some of the things you're telling your players and your recruits about what it is that you're trying to build?
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy to say culture is here, style of play or game model is here, and there's two different buckets. For us, we're trying from the get-go, we're trying to say, no, it's all one thing. And how do we build being courageous, being brave, being daring, trusting each other, being positive, being proactive? How can all of those characteristics that you want a culture to be play into the way we want to play? And how does it become a living, breathing thing in training, in the locker room, in film meetings, in individual meetings, in games, everything? How does that become our consistent recipe that we try to cook up? Those couple things I listed are the ones that come to my mind first off. But you can see behind me, there's literally nothing on the wall. There's no sayings, there's no like catchphrases. We just care about every single day treating each other that way, and that's the way we want to play. And it's not easy, but if you want to play at the highest level and you want to win games in November, you have to have those things. And it's not catchphrases on the wall. It's not shirts that say fancy sayings or phrases. It has to be a living, breathing thing. So we've kind of been crazy of just like stripping it all down and been like, how do we actually treat each other? And focusing on those things for the first 3 months.
I gotta believe that at least some of the guys are a little bit like sponges, where they're like taking this all in and being like, "This is you're right." Like I don't want to say this is the sort of soccer experience that I wanted. Forget the student part, but just from a soccer perspective, I got to believe that some of them are like, "Man, this is kind of the way I wanted it to be or expected it to be." No.
I hope we're getting a little bit of that feedback. Most of it is that they're becoming more brave to ask questions or tell us their feedback. I'll give you an example. So, like the first month, basically the whole month of March, we worked on our attacking principles, like the fun things, that they all wanted exactly what we said. This is what we've been waiting for. We wanted more information about this. Wow, this is so cool. And then we said, basically going into April, you've not been training in real space. You've not been training against real pressure. This is not like a game. It's been too easy. So I hope that was successful. I hope that was fun. Now we're going to focus on the stuff that wins. The defending side, the transitional side, how do you be tight? How do you compete? How are you loud every single time every ball is passed? How are you giving direction? And what they saw happen was the attacking stuff comes out even more. Because now there's real pressure. Now it's tighter than a game. Now it's less space than a game. So that's what we tried to show them of like, I've heard you talk about Messiah, iron sharpens iron. That's how we're letting them feel it. So I think that really sets up for the fall of like, you have to have all of it in training. You can't just say, oh, we want to play like a pro team. It's going to be attacking. Yeah. If it's not real in training, you're just setting yourself up to get punched in the mouth. So
that's very true.
That's where we're at. But I'll give you one more little tidbit. So after one of our training sessions, actually it was the spring game. One of the rising seniors, he's a D2 transfer, a really good player. He came up and kind of put his arm around me. He was like, "Coach, this guy cannot play in that position. He is killing us." And I was like, I think you're reading this wrong. He's actually the ideal profile that we want in that position. We just need to trust that he's okay making these mistakes. He's going to grow from them. But look at what he did really well. Those are the conversations that these guys have been desperately waiting for, is giving us the feedback. asking questions, learning of our answers or saying this, or us saying like, you know what, you're probably right. Let's change that or let's improve that. And that's what I've been enjoying, the one-on-one conversations, the group conversations,
Hmm.
about how do we get better as a team? What's our goal in the fall? And
Hmm.
that's these guys are eager for that for sure.
Yeah. You mentioned this, and I don't mean it to be trite or,
No, it's
but
okay.
like, is your goal like if you were to just summarize like for the fall, like is your goal literally to just like or one of your goals because I'm assuming you have many to win a conference game? Like, do you want to notch that one out? Like, do you want to like if we're gonna start on the right like and sometimes that first one is the hardest one, right? Because they're not accustomed to the pressure, all those kinds of things. But is that would is that something that you're like, we this is going to be the first one we're going to tackle as a sign that we are making the right progress? I don't know if that sounded right, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I think I'm not going to try to walk around your question. I'm going to try to answer it. I'm going to try to answer it, I promise.
yeah,
Um, I think that is a very real thing that winning becomes a mentality, it becomes addictive, and that's a
yeah,
positive. That's a positive thing. Our job right now is yes, we're trying to still say like, dude, this nothing is impossible. Like
yeah,
we could win the league. We
yeah,
can. Like you have to believe that. You have to see there's a path.
yeah,
It's not a very wide path. It's not we're 68% favorites to win the league. It's not that. We all know that. But you also can't limit yourself in saying we can't win
yeah,
the league. So we're not putting limits. We're not saying this is our goal, then this is our goal. What our job is to try to break down and say, how do you win? What are the
mm,
main actions that lead to winning? What are the main KPIs we
yeah,
can pull out of watching Premier League or watching MLS, whatever? What can we learn? How do we train?
yeah,
What is the consistent? Those are the things that we're trying to get to where the guys understand, oh, if I do these actions, if I work together and I trust my guy and we're going to do this, we can win games.
yeah,
Then when they start tasting it, now it's you're going to look back and be like, oh, we won two conference games. Cool. I'm glad we didn't set the bar at just one.
yeah,
Maybe we did have a winning season. Maybe we did win double digit games. Maybe we did play in a conference final. I don't know, but I know that we're not going to limit it, but we're also not going to
yeah,
put the bar so low where it's kind of like speaking down to them, Like
yeah.
I don't know if I'm answering your question or
Yeah,
not, but
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. No, I get that. I get that. I was just I'm big on culture, and I am also big on goals because I do think, and I'm big on like concrete goals, right?
yeah,
Like, we want a better culture. That to me isn't a goal. Like, you can't quantify it. So when somebody says, "Oh, we want to win a game in conference," I'm like, man, that's a stake in the ground, right? And so I really I find that interesting, not because of what the actual goal is, but that you're so committed to this one. I'm not saying it is, but this one thing that you will know at the end of the season whether you accomplish that goal or not, right? Like,
correct, yeah,
and I think that's I always said I think soccer is a bold sport, right? Like to play
yeah,
well, to win, you have to be. There is a certain level of boldness that you have to have. Like,
I agree,
and if you don't, you're not. I mean, you might be average forever, right? Like it
yeah.
doesn't. Being the best teams are bold and they're strong and all that. So anyhow, I
So
kind of
we
rambled, but
no we talk about it all the time, and like me and Jordan, my assistant coach, like we joke about it in the office, even doing the gear order.
yeah,
But we talk about it with the players. We have this little saying that I'm sure we stole it from somebody, but who dares wins is what we
yeah,
said.
yeah,
And it's exactly that. You have to be bold, you have to be brave, you have to be courageous, you have to be daring. And we're
yeah,
trying to teach that to the players. We're trying to embody it ourselves,
yeah,
having difficult conversations, asking difficult questions,
yeah,
going to places that maybe you shouldn't go, but
yeah,
who dares wins. Maybe you find
yeah,
somebody.
yeah,
And that's the way we want to play. So I think, yeah, like of course, the outcomes, like sport is outcomes based. How many
yeah,
wins did you have? Did you win trophies? Whatever, whatever. What's your winning position percentage? How many goals did you score? Whatever. Our job is try to break it down. Be like, how do you get to that?
yeah,
What is your performance? What can you do to get to that
yeah,
outcome? And that's hard. But I'll give you an example. So, like the spring game that we played is a team that they played in the fall. the exact same team. It was in the
Yeah.
same location, so it's here. We hosted it. No, they didn't change their coach. They haven't changed their players. We haven't changed our players. So we straight up just challenged our guys. The only thing that's different is your work ethic. That's it. Can you improve in this specific KPI from the fall game to the spring game? And I won't. I mean, I can tell you what the KPI is if we want to go into it. But we went from negative 20 in the fall. We were counting box entries, controlled box entries. We lost the fall, negative 20. The spring, we won by 1. So we were trying to tell the guys, like, who cares what the score was? You improved on this KPI. You keep improving on this, and we keep improving. How do we improve this? You have a chance. You have a chance to win games in the fall. Now, you didn't taste it yet. You haven't built the momentum. It's not addictive yet because you still hate that feeling of losing, but we're on the right track. That's kind of what we're trying to sell our guys on. Be consistent with this. Trust me. Let's go. It won't click until they actually taste it.
Yeah. It's interesting. Defeat does that. It pulls you back, or fear of defeat. I'm sorry, not defeat, but fear of defeat intuitively gets you a little bit more, right, defensive, right? Like you're afraid to get hit in the face. Well, the guys who win, they're like, you're going to hit me, I'm going to hit you, I'm going to hit you twice as hard, right? Like, and that is, it's easy to say, it's easy to put on a t-shirt, maybe not. My phrases would be way too long to put
It's
on
a whole
a t-shirt.
it's a whole paragraph.
Yeah. Like small font, like, but it's the hardest thing to do. It's the hardest thing to get to that point where you're like going out onto a field, not afraid of losing, but more focused on, okay, we're winning today, and how are we going to win? I think
I
think
agree.
it's a critical aspect, mental aspect that
I agree.
a lot of players fail to recognize.
I agree 1,000%, and I'm the first person to raise my hand and think and say, when I first got into coaching, I didn't believe in those things. I didn't think that stuff mattered. The mentality, the culture. I was like, dude, this is tactics, bro. Like, I'm going to be the tactical genius. And it's not until you get punched in the face by guys that are like just trying harder, and they clearly train that. You're like, wait a second. Yeah, you can't not be intense. You can't not be proactive. Like, what are we doing? But by then, it's too late, and you have to like almost start over. So this is a chance that we can get it right from the get go, and the priorities can be right from the get go. So I think I agree with you 100%. Like that being daring, being brave, being courageous has got to be where it comes from.
Yeah, that's awesome. It gives me goosebumps, like because that's the sort of thing. Like you see players. When you see players growing into that mindset, you actually visibly see their soccer change.
Yeah.
Like how they play and what they do. They're not afraid to go in for tackles. They're comfortable getting forward because they think they're going to be the next guy to score. It's to me the most dramatic mental piece. Hey, let me ask you what. All right, because you have all this experience, LA Galaxy, all that kind of stuff. Can I ask you what are we doing right in the United States? And I'm asking because I had a chance to speak. I don't know if you know Peter Wilt.
I'm aware of him.
Yeah. So he's had a lot of experience, and I mean, I think we'd love to talk about what we're not doing because our men's team is currently very terrible. I'm sorry, that's my opinion, but. Like, what are we doing? Like, what soccer-wise, what are we doing right? I'll just open that one, just for you.
So 20 years ago, we had IMG for the men, and it was the best 20 U17 players in the country. Now you have 30 IMGs. And there's an incentive for those clubs to get these guys professional games, professional minutes, professional training, get them on the platform and sell them to the big clubs in Europe. So we are identifying and developing players better than we were 20 years ago. It's still not good enough. It's still not enough. We probably need 100 of those. Like the USL academies are starting to ramp up, and some of them are doing it well. There's just a lot of players that are going unseen at early ages. I think MLS. I'm an MLS guy, so like I'm obviously biased, but I think MLS academies are doing a great job of finding these kids at 13, 14,
Mm-hmm.
bringing them in, and having a path for them to be pro at 17, 18. They
Mm-hmm.
really are. There's some things that can be improved in that, but as far as catching the best talent and the ones that we think have the most potential, just pure numbers, you have however many times, whatever that math works out to be, 30 times the programs.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. We That's new, and it's funny because that's a relatively recent phenomenon. You're right, Braden. I knew somebody who was down at the IMG Academy with those original 20 or 30 players or whatever,
Yep.
and you don't realize like how unique that was.
No.
These were the best that we knew we had out of everybody, and now you're right.
Yep.
Like even the MLS academies are tapping into a lot more players. And whether they pan out or not, it doesn't matter. It's just slowly elevating that
Yep.
quality of the game, right? And I think
I
that's
would I would go one step further, and I explained this to some people in Columbus when ownership changed, and they were asking like, all right, how do we really get on the front of this? And you're seeing it now with young players coming through
right.
and selling. And I explained it very straight up. I said in 2017, when there were only I think 6 MLS academies that were scouting players, we were one of them.
Mm-hmm.
We all 6 of us were following around the youth national teams.
Yeah.
We were saying, who's in the youth national team pool at 14? Who's in the youth
Yeah.
national team pool at U15? Who's going to this national training center in Chattanooga?
Yeah.
Now, that was just in 2017. Now, 8 years later, 6 years later, whatever it is, the opposite is happening. All the ID centers are calling the MLS clubs and saying, who should we invite in?
Yeah.
It's flipped. The
Yeah.
clubs have an incentive to find the players and develop them, not our national team.
Yeah.
And once that grows up and it keeps going, the national teams will be better.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is true. But we have a long way to go for sure.
Yeah. 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 What do you think of the overall state of coaching as I'm asking a coach?
What do you mean state of coaching? Like just
Like
the
quality of coaching, quality of coaches in your experience, whether it's MLS or elsewhere.
wow. I don't know how to take that. I think I'm leaning forward for this one.
Yeah.
Um, I think you have a lot of people that are extremely interested in becoming a better coach. And I think there's a lot of people that are interested in what you were saying, the mentality, the motivation, connection with players. You also have people that are super interested in the tactical and what do we do to train? What's my pedagogy? What's my macro cycle? Like there's a lot of that
Yeah.
on both sides. I don't think you've ever had this much interest, and it's
Yeah.
fascinating. It's fascinating that there's people that are excited about getting better about teaching this game, and that's only a good thing. I hope that some of that starts to trickle down to the younger ages.
Yeah.
In Columbus, the last 3 years, that was my job, is to push in the most polite way possible for our partner clubs, our affiliates, to have their best coaches at 12 and U11, U10. And there's clubs now starting to focus on that and saying, yeah, our job is, if we're going to sell to parents, have your kids start with us. We're going to try to get our best players with our best coaches as early as possible.
Yeah.
And you only do that because you have as many good coaches. If you only have 1 or 2 good coaches in your club, you can't put them down.
Yeah.
You have to keep them at the high school ages.
Yeah.
So I think the state of coaching is growing. It's improving. There's still ways to go, but I think people are excited. They're interested, and there's so many resources. It's almost information overload. But that's a good thing if you can filter it out and stay focused on what really matters.
That's a rabbit hole. Like we could go.
Yeah,
I'll
we
avoid the
can.
rabbit hole.
We can
because
go down there.
Yeah.
That's multiple rabbit holes.
Yeah. Let's go back to Huntington,
Huntingdon.
whatever.
Just say it fast. Huntingdon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your recruiting class look like for 2025? Is it done or are you done?
Never done. You're never done.
Yeah.
No, so yeah. I mean, obviously we started, I would say, three-quarters of the way done of the
Yeah.
timeline. That's unique because I'm not coming from the college world. I didn't
Right.
have a list of players I'd already
Yeah.
seen, and so we have 13 guys signed, and I'm pumped about those dudes. They're going to be very, very good fits for us, but we also have a handful of offers out still,
Yeah.
that are strategic positions that we're trying to get. But we're also not done looking,
Hmm.
but we don't want to go too far. I don't want to get into 18, 19, 20 guys. We're not going to be there. I think if we can get 15, 16, we'll be in a really good spot, talent wise. But we also have 20 returners that are hungry and eager, and there's a lot more talent in there than probably people expect.
Hmm.
That's our job, is just try to bring in more talented players that the iron can sharpen iron. And
Hmm.
we're more worried about making sure our floor has risen.
Yeah.
That's our goal. And if you can also raise the ceiling while doing that, great. Then
Yeah.
we're in a good
Yeah.
spot.
And you said you had 17 on the roster, so you're looking
17 field players,
Yeah.
three goalkeepers. Yeah, so
Oh,
we have
okay.
20. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're looking low 30s, mid 30s, somewhere in there. Is that?
Yeah, I tell people all the time, like it always will work its way out. D3,
Yeah.
you have guys that,
Yeah.
especially taking over a program like this, like maybe they're not into it, or their
Yeah.
grades or financial situations. Who knows? Different things happen. We only have 35 lockers in our. I'm being honest. Like it's
Yeah.
our men's soccer locker room. We only have 35 lockers, and we're not going to be doing a JV team or a developmental team,
Uh-huh.
whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
reserve team. So we have to be very careful not to go over that, because that starts
Yeah.
to harm the experience of everybody. But I want every one of those 35 guys to be able to be at the level that they can play.
Yeah.
They can
Yeah.
actually help the team.
Yeah.
So that's the balance. That's the challenge for us, is how do you push that tempo as fast as possible,
Yeah.
without turning into the D1 of like, you're here for a year and then you're gone. I'm cutting you.
Yeah. Yeah.
We want to develop those guys over time for sure.
Yeah. That's got to be hard now. The fluidity of it all. Like somebody, I think it's starting to creep into people's minds. I'll go here for a year. I don't doesn't work out. I'll go somewhere else. I don't know if that's healthy, helpful.
I
Like
agree.
I don't know. I struggle with that one. Right. I understand it, and you know it's a marketplace. I get all that stuff, but I do think there's kids need to learn what it means to commit. Right.
I
Like
agree. I
so
agree.
I don't know.
Uh, we've actually I lost a player because of that
Mm,
exact conversation, and the club, a very very good club. I won't say
mm,
who they are. They told the kid, and we all had the conversation.
yeah.
Hey, maybe you should go to Huntingdon. Great coach. You're going to get experience. You can walk right in probably and start. That was their perception. And then you can transfer. We'll help you transfer. You can go in the portal. And I had to tell the kid and the club, that
Yeah.
is not what we're doing.
Yeah.
This is not a junior college. There's nothing wrong with junior college, but this would be the most expensive junior college in the country. That's
Yeah.
a terrible mistake.
Yeah.
Don't do that. I want to build and develop players for 4 years. And if you want to come here for 4 years and develop, fantastic. We're a great fit. If you're not, go to a junior college. I'll keep tabs on you too. And you
Yeah.
might still have opportunities to transfer up to a D1 or whatever.
Yeah.
So we're trying to have those conversations early. So we're laying the groundwork of like, we don't want guys to come here to leave. This is
Uh-huh.
not a transactional relationship.
Yeah.
And I'll tell them, for me personally, I just built my wife, or we are building it right now, our dream home in
Mm-hmm.
the same neighborhood as my mom and my sister.
Mm-hmm.
I'm committing long term. I can't leave. There
Yeah.
is no win here and bounce. Like I'm stuck,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I like that. I like the consistency. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like we're asking our players to put their money where their mouth is and like commit and stay and
Yeah.
develop and trust each other. Then we're going to do the same thing.
Yeah. 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 And also look, I think for the longest time you also had at least coaches who were like, I don't want to transfer kid because you don't know what his experience was like. Was he a pain? Is he like thinks he's all that? Like I think a little bit, like I said, because the D1 is all changing, and I think that's sort of creeped in a little bit to players' psyches. Like, I don't have to stay if I don't like it. Well, you're picking a school for a whole host of variables.
Yep.
And if you're just going for soccer, I think that's always a not a healthy thing, right? Like
That's
especially
tough.
D3, right? It's
It's
just
tough.
yeah.
I
All
think
right.
it's yeah. Oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Sorry.
No,
Sorry.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just I think it's okay if that's their initial interest, and
Hmm.
I'll raise my hand and say
Yeah, yeah,
that was the same for me.
yeah.
You know, at Charleston, I they asked me if I wanted to be an SGA, and sure, let's
Yeah.
do it. This is a great experience. So you have to be open to the other parts of the experience of college. And that's what we do really well here at Huntington. But it's okay for soccer to be the initial factor
Yeah,
that makes
yeah,
you interested. But it's not just that.
yeah.
You're
Yeah,
not a
yeah,
you're not a professional soccer player. You're a college student athlete, and there's opportunities to do other things. So, like,
yeah,
yeah, I think you're nailing it. Like, it's all about the well-rounded experience,
yeah,
especially at D3 for sure.
yeah, yeah. Soccer opens the door without a doubt. I looked at
Yep.
schools with the simple players, and we went to schools that wouldn't have otherwise been on the radar had it not been for soccer. So I
Yep.
think that's a positive. But I think yeah, it's a once you get there, it is a lot more than just the soccer.
Yep. I agree.
Um, all right, what are we not talking about in soccer? The big question. It doesn't matter in what level. Doesn't what are yeah what is it that we are not talking about and we should?
Yeah, I think my initial gut reaction to this, and so I prepared. I knew you asked this question. I knew you asked. I heard it in a
It's
couple
not
of the other
fair.
interviews.
Come on.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you can't sneak it up on me. Sorry. Sorry, Paul. Um, I think I'm in a unique position, a unique context for this, but I think the role of parents, the role of friends, the role of siblings is drastically undervalued. We all think it's the coach-player relationship at every level.
Interesting. Yeah.
If you don't have the right people in your corner, if you're not surrounded by people that are supportive of you, positive, trusting, whatever, that player-coach relationship can only go so far,
Yeah.
and that player can only go so far. You see it with guys at the pro level. They get the wrong agent, gives them bad advice, starts planting some seeds in their mind. That player is not the same player, and it's sad.
Yeah.
The other way is true. The other way is true. You have a player at this level, right? And you meet their parents, and you're like, "Wow, these guys are incredible. I hope their son is like them."
Hmm.
They turn into something that you're like, "Whoa, these guys are incredible leaders. Like,
Yeah.
I can just give the team to this guy."
Yeah.
It's incredible. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and I think the tree is their support system. And I think that's what I'm learning, and I'm trying to figure out how can we utilize that to help our players grow? How can we make our parents aware of it or their friends aware of it, the professors aware of it, whatever, the RA, it could be anybody.
Hmm.
But the older people in the room are impacting player development as much as the coaches.
That's really interesting because that definitely runs countercultural to sort of the conversations you hear about parents in general in sports, right? Like, which is overly negative, overly, yeah, overly negative.
Well,
Like, I think
think
that's,
about it.
it's,
Think about it like this. So we had a group come in. I don't even remember the name, and if I did, I probably wouldn't put it out there. But a really highly respected organization, and creating this um, it's like a software that they were trying to. They ended up working with us at the crew. We had this big meeting. The entire technical staff was in there, and we were talking about player development. And we're talking about, the data shows this, the data shows this. Over 10 years, we've been tracking these guys at Chelsea and blah, blah, blah. And I went and talked to the guy after. I was like, I think you're missing the boat completely. That in America, the 14-year-old's parents that they get in the car with after the game, that stuff matters so much. The message that is
yeah,
going into that kid's brain when he gets in the car after a good game or a bad game or whatever.
yeah.
How do we qualify that? How do we quantify that? I have no idea. I'm just putting on your radar. Could we
Hmm.
please bring this in?
Yeah,
Because it's huge. It's
yeah,
huge. And
yeah.
the last thing I would say to that is the first 2 years I was at the crew, the best players in the academy were Sebastian Berhalter.
Hmm.
Obviously, you know
Yeah,
what his dad does.
yeah,
Owen Wolf, you know what his
yeah,
dad does.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Tyler Wolf, you know what his dad
yeah,
does.
yeah,
Juan Castilla, who signed homegrown with Houston Dynamo, his dad's a coach in the Dynamo
Yeah.
Academy system. You can go down the list. All
Yeah.
their parents were coaches, high level
Yeah.
coaches.
Yeah.
There's no secret that the reason why those kids are ready is because the parents have backed off and said, trust
Yeah.
your coach. Hey, son, you
Yeah.
had a bad game. I'm here with you. They're not
Yeah.
screaming and yelling, oh, we got to go to get more private training.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
holistic approach because
Yeah.
those guys understand the perspective.
Yeah.
And I think there's other parents out there that aren't like former pros that also get that perspective, and their kids are going to have a better chance of being top level players.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that's my soapbox.
That's a really good one. That is a really good one. That's tops right there because I never would have thought that to hear it from a coach, no less. Right, like the importance of parents. I mean,
It's huge.
like I said, especially these days where it's overly negative, the connotation is negative or thought of.
Look, coaches can be negative.
Yeah,
It's
well,
just, I
believe
mean,
me, I know a lot of them.
well, yeah.
Anyhow, Coach, thank you. This was fantastic. Really do
Thanks,
appreciate the
Paul.
time and the conversation. I wish you and your men all the best. I'll be watching from afar, and
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate
yeah,
you.
just really appreciate the time. So,
Cool. Thank you so much.
all right,
Thanks for having me on.
yep. Best of luck.
Thank you.